So what we'll take a look at now is creating the equivalent function, but to remove a basket item. And let's create the function. So we'll say export const remove basket item async. And once again, we'll use the create async thunk method. And what do we want in our type parameters here? Well, what do we return when we remove an item from a basket? We actually return nothing, or from our API we get nothing back. So what we're going to return from this method is void. And then we specify the type parameters once again for the arguments that we're going to receive inside this create async thunk. So we'll have a product ID, which is a number. And same again for the quantity, we'll specify this as a number as well. And once again, we'll make this optional. And then we'll open parentheses and we'll give this function a type prefix. And we'll say basket, and we'll say remove baskets item async. And add a comma, and then we create the async method. Once again, similar to what we've done before, we'll specify the product ID, the quantity, and we'll set this equal to 1. And after the closing parenthesis, we'll add the try catch block. And we'll pass in the error, and if we get an error, we'll just console.log the error. And in the try block, we're not going to be returning from this, so we're just going to say await, and then agent.baskets, and we're going to say remove item, and we need to pass in the product ID and the quantity. And then we can go down to our extra reducers and add the logic inside here. Now we're going to move the logic from the remove item in our reducer, and we're going to move it down into our extra reducer. But let's add the cases first of all. So we're going to say builder, add case, and we're going to say remove basket item async, and we'll say pending. And we'll pass in the state and the action. And we'll say state.status equals, and we'll say pending remove item. And once again, we'll get the product ID inside here. So we'll say action meta arg, and we'll use the product ID once again. And then we'll add the second case. And we'll say remove basket item async dot fulfilled. Once again, we'll get the state and the action. And let's see. I think we can do a bit of copying and pasting inside here, because we're going to have most of this as it is. So I'm just going to copy this first of all and paste it inside. But our product ID and quantity are not coming from the payload this time. They're coming from our meta, our arguments inside there. So instead of action.payload, I'm going to say action.meta.arg, and then destructure the product ID and the quantity from there. And we're only getting an error here because it says quantity is possibly undefined. Well, is it going to be undefined? Because in here I've specified that the quantity is 1, and we can override it there. So TypeScript hasn't been able to figure out that this cannot be undefined because we're specifying this as a value here. So this is a good time to use the exclamation mark to override the type safety, because we know this is not possible for this to be anything other than a value. And the rest of this code can stay the same, but we also need to specify the status here. So we'll say state.status is equal to idle once we've completed that task. And whenever we're removing an item from a basket, there's no occasion where we're not going to use the asynchronous version of this method, because we always need to update our API and therefore our database. So what we'll do is we'll remove the item reducer function, and we'll also remove it from here as well, because we don't need that duplicate code inside there. And all of the logic's going to take place inside this extra reducer. And we just need one more, and we'll say builder.addCase, and this is going to be for the remove basket item async and rejected. and we'll specify state, and inside here we'll just say state.status equals idle. Now I do appreciate there's a bit more boilerplate going on now, and I did suggest that using Redux Toolkit would avoid the majority of boilerplate, and it does, but it does feel like there's still some boilerplate left over, especially in these cases where we've got all of this logic going on. But if we were handling all of this functionality ourselves in a normal Redux setup, then we would have more, I promise you, boilerplate going on than this. So now that we have this in place, let's go and fix all of the stuff that we'll have broken now because we've removed the export from here. And let's go take a look at our product details first of all. So we can adjust both of these functions here. We're still going to want the handle update cart function as a wrapper around this. We don't need our set submitting. We can remove that, and we can also remove the local state for submitting as well. So let's remove that local state. And we're going to remove the remove item function from the imports there as well. So inside the update cart, let's remove the agent method. And we're simply going to dispatch, and we'll say add basket item async, and inside the parameters here we need to specify the product ID, and we need the quantity. Or in this case, we need to specify the quantity is the updated quantity. And the product ID doesn't exist either, so we need to specify product ID, and that's going to be the item dot product ID. And that should remove the errors. And rather than item.id, let's go for product.id in this case. And either way, it's the same thing. We're getting the warning here saying that, well, product ID is not allowed to be null, and you could potentially make this undefined. But if we've got to the handle update cart method, then there's no way the product can be undefined because we're not going to return this code if we don't have the product. So TypeScript hasn't worked this out, so we'll need to tell TypeScript that we don't care about its type safety check and add the exclamation mark here as well. Now we need to do the same for the next one as well, so let's remove all of this code. And we'll say dispatch. And we'll say remove basket item async. And once again, we just need the product ID, which is going to be the product.id. And the quantity is going to be the updated quantity. And let's just add the exclamation mark again here for this method as well. So down in the code, in the component code, let's see what we need to update. We need to update the loading flag. Did we bring in status from the store? Nope, we need to do that. So we've already got the app selector for the basket. So let's just add status here as well. And let's scroll on down to the button. And we're going to check the status and see if it includes pending remove item plus the item dot product ID, and fully on click, and the function stays the same because we're using, of course, the dispatch inside this function anyway. Everything else should stay the same. Let's go test and see if we've got this correct. And we're missing an import, and that's in the basket page, a different area, but of course we need to adjust this as well. So let's go to our basket page, let's remove the remove item method, and let's just handle these cases as well whilst we're here. So we don't need either of these functions, we don't need the set status, we can remove all of this code. So let's do that. And we can also remove the status inside here as well. We need the dispatch, and we'll need the basket and the status from the Redux store. And let's go down and fix the functions. And our loading indicator can say status.includes, and we'll say pending remove item plus the item dot product ID, And then for the on-click, we can remove that code and replace it with dispatch. And did we bring in dispatch in this method? Yeah, we've got access to our dispatch here. So let's go back down and we'll say dispatch. And we're removing an item here, so we'll say remove basket item async, open parentheses, open curly brackets, and for the product ID property, that's going to be item.productID, and for the quantity, that's going to be, in this case, not necessary because we're just decrementing. So we only need one property inside there. Let's also just copy this on click in its entirety and paste it below into the trash can on click. And this one we do need the quantity. So we're going to specify quantity is the item.quantity so that we remove the item entirely. And then for the loading indicator here, let's specify status.includes, and we'll say pending remove item plus item.productID. And you're probably thinking, well, that's not going to cut it, but we'll deal with that soon. As you would be correct, it's not going to cut it. And for this status, we're going to say status.include, and we're going to check for the pending add item plus the item.productID. And then we're going to update this function to use dispatch. And we're going to say add basket item async. And we just need the or the product ID is going to be the item.productID. Okay, now let's go and test the functionality here. And if we go across to the basket page, and let's just refresh the page, make sure that everything looks good when we do that. And let's try adding a new product. And we're going to start to see a few logic problems here. Notice that when I add the plus button, we can see two loading indicators. And what we're going to do here is use these problems as an opportunity to practice troubleshooting logic problems and what happens in other occasions as well. So the next lesson is going to be a solution to the different problems I'm going to show you that we have that we've introduced into our application. And the next problem, if I click on the minus, then again we see two loading indicators, and also both on the button here and on the right hand side as well. That's a common problem that we've seen before and we kind of know how to fix. But also what we have here is not a number, NaN, for our item quantity. And that's spread to our badge at the top, and it's also spread to the subtotal here and in all of our totals on the bottom as well. So something's gone horribly wrong when we try and remove an item. It looks like we've got ourselves in a bit of a pickle, as they say. And your goal is to try and see if you can solve these problems that I've purposely asked you to implement in your application. Now, you have some pretty good tools at your disposal now. And the best tool, I love this tool, is the Redux DevTools. And look at the wealth of information you've got inside here. You can jump back in time if you wanted to. I'm not sure that's going to help solve your problem, but it's an option. But what you can see is the two loading indicators at the same time, because we've clicked on the add basket item async. And now you can see what's been added and why this possibly would give you the problem. And then you can jump forward in time and you can take a look at when you remove an item, what happened here, what caused the not a number. So do please take a look at your DevTools and just accumulate information. See if you can find out what the problem is, what you can do to resolve it, and see if you can get these loading indicators fixed at the same time as well. So that's your challenge for this particular section, and in the next lesson, we'll clean it up and see how you can go about solving these kinds of problems.